Welcome to Bible study. We are preparing this study for St. Michael's Lutheran Church on Sunday, January 14th, 2024. If you're able to, we'll be talking about these words in our Sunday morning gathering at 9 o'clock. You're all welcome to come. We've been looking at chapters 10 and 11 of Acts. We're going to move into chapter 12 today. If you have a Bible handy, I'd encourage you to open that up, follow along, so you can see some of the things that we're talking about here for yourself. At the end of our discussion in church, or at the gathering on Sunday, we noticed that Barnabas had gone and picked up Paul after his long sojourn in his hometown of Tarsus. Barnabas went and sought him out. He was up in Antioch where something new was happening. The good news had been proclaimed to the Gentiles. The Gentiles had believed, and Barnabas had come up and seen this work of the Holy Spirit and had blessed it. And he remained to help sort of navigate, to lead this. And in order to do that, he had reached out to the nearby city of Tarsus and brought this man that he knew Jesus had called on that road to Damascus some decade and a half before. And Barnabas said, now is the time. I need Saul to come. And so he went over there and grabbed him, found him, got him, brought him back, and together they started leading. Now, why would he do that? Most likely because Saul of Tarsus may be one of the most highly educated Christians at that moment. If you remember, the disciples whom Jesus called were largely fishermen. They were blue-collar people. Matthew may have had some education, but many of the others did not. But Saul of Tarsus had been educated as a Pharisee. It was an intense, very literate, and very, very logical kind of training that he had encountered. Barnabas thought too, and I think he had seen something in Saul. You remember, Barnabas had been Saul's entree to the disciples after his experience with Jesus on the road. Nobody trusted him, but Barnabas was the one who brought him in. So Barnabas had seen something in them already. And so he brings him in to this congregation that's going through all of these changes. He wants Saul of Tarsus to be there. And as we've already intimated, we think that Saul is at this point in his life going through a very deep rereading of his Torah and his prophets, his Old Testament. And what he is discovering in there is that this Torah is talking about Jesus. And now he is going to be instrumental in the shaping of this first mixed community of people, of Jewish Christians and Christians who are Gentiles and who are not Torah observant, who are not following the Mosaic law. That is groundbreaking. And Barnabas brings Saul to be both a leader and a teacher, most likely a teacher, into that situation, because the tensions must have been strong. At the end of chapter 11, we know that a prophet came down from Jerusalem, a fellow by the name of Agabus, and he stood up and foretold by the Spirit there would be this great famine in all the world. It took place in the days of Claudius. And for some reason, the disciples determined, everyone according to his ability, to send relief to the brothers in Judea. Why did they send them to Judea? Were they particularly poor? Were there problems? What's going on? Well, Luke doesn't so much say it, but in this next chapter, we may get some clues as to why they sent help to the disciples in Judea. They sent it to the elders, that would be to the disciples, to the apostles, to Peter and James and John, and through the rest of the leadership, by the hand of Barnabas and Saul. And so Barnabas and Saul are sent to Jerusalem with a gift. They're sent with money. They're sent with an offering that has been raised up from this mixed community of people to the poor and the hungry people of Jerusalem in the instance of this great famine that is to come. Now in chapter 12, we start to see what is it that Paul and Barnabas experience in Jerusalem. What happens when they get there? At the end of chapter 12, we're just going to hear Paul and Barnabas went back. So we kind of have this presumption that these events happen while they are there. Remember that Luke isn't writing a strictly chronological narrative. It may well be that Luke is taking some events that happened outside of that time and stuck them in between these two trips of Barnabas and Paul to Jerusalem and Barnabas and Paul back, because he wants you to see this is what it's like for the people in Jerusalem. And what we're going to notice is something has changed. We've already encountered the Jerusalem church under persecution. Initially, the Sanhedrin, the council, moved against the disciples, the leaders of the Christian movement. In chapter 7 and following, we saw Saul himself leading a persecution not of the leaders of the movement, but of the general people of the Christian movement. He was just finding men and women and grabbing them and throwing them in prison. So this had gone from being an attempt to cut off the head and hence to disempower the Christian movement. Now it became a general movement against the Christians themselves. Now in chapter 12, it gets political. Because what we see is, at about that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. Now it's no longer the church leaders who largely control the city of Jerusalem. They are a mix of political and religious leaders. But now we have this strictly secular leader who is the Roman authority in that area, and who generally the Roman authorities have little or no care about the religious practices of the people in their empire. They really don't care. As long as you pay your taxes, the Romans will let you do just about anything. Herod, the king, lays violent hands on some. Why does he do that? Probably this has become politically necessary for him to do it. Probably because pressures have been brought to bear upon him by the Sanhedrin, by others. We don't know. Luke doesn't tell us. But this is a different character of persecution. Now the state is persecuting the Christians. He killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. This is James of James and John, one of the three disciples that went up the hill to witness the transfiguration of Jesus. This is one of the first disciples that Jesus called from the fishing boats. It appears that this James was actually really the leader of the first Christian movement. Before Peter, James may have been in charge. And when he saw that this pleased the Jews, this was politically good for him, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread, Passover time, when all of the passions and this is what really got Jesus arrested, was that the Romans knew that if there was going to be a revolt in Jerusalem, it would likely happen during Passover. This is the days of unleavened bread. And when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending that after the Passover, to bring him out to the people. And so Peter was kept in prison. But the church, the believers, made earnest prayer for him to God. Now, Herod is about to bring him out. But on that very night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers. bound with 2 chains, and sentries before the door were guarding the prison. This should sound a little familiar. This has happened before. Remember, earlier in Acts, a very similar event took place when they arrested the disciples, and they went to look for them the next day, and they weren't there. Behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side. Peter was sleeping. Smack. Wake him up. Get up quickly, he said. And the chains fell off of his hands. And the angel said to him, dress yourself and put on your sandals. And he did so. And he said to him, wrap your cloak around you and follow me. And Peter did it. He went out and followed him. But he did not know that what was being done by the angel was real. He thought he was seeing a vision. He thought he was having a dream. When they had passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord. Can't you just sort of vision this? I mean, Hollywood would do this well. They went out, and they went along one street, and immediately the angel left him. At this point, Peter comes to himself. He's like, he wakes up, and he goes, wait a minute, this isn't a dream. I'm really out here. I'm no longer in that prison over there. I'm out. But does he feel safe yet? Probably not. Now I'm sure the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting. And when he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose other name is Mark, where many were gathered together and were praying. And when he knocked at the door of the gateway, a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. Recognizing Peter's voice, in her joy, she didn't open the gate, but she ran in and reported, Peter is standing at the gate. They said to her, oh, you're out of your mind. They'd been praying, but they didn't believe God would do it this way. She kept insisting, no, it's really here. And they said, no, it's his angel. But Peter, meanwhile, is out there really kind of worried that the guards are going to be coming by any time. He's going to get rearrested. He's banging on this door. And finally, somebody goes and opens it. They saw him and they're amazed. He motions to them with his hand to be silent. And he described to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, tell these things to James and the brothers. Does he not know about James's death? Could be, or he does know about it, but there's another James, and that would be James, the brother of Jesus. Or it could be James the Lesser, another one of the disciples, but likely this James that he says to talk to is the brother of Jesus. This is the James that will write the letter that we read about, that we can read later in the New Testament. Then he departed and he went to another place. This is just simply good underground behavior. He tells them, I'm here, he gives them a message, and then he goes to somewhere else. So they don't necessarily know where he is. He can't be betrayed. Now, when the day came, there was no little disturbance among the soldiers over what had become of Peter. Where'd he go? How'd he get out of here? And after Herod searched for him and didn't find him, he examined the sentries and ordered that they should be put to death, executed them. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea and spent time there. Now Herod was angry with the people of Tyre and Sidon. That's north of Caesarea. It's right on the coast. This is modern-day Lebanon. And they came to him with one accord, and having persuaded Blastus, the king's chamberlain, probably with a bribe, they asked for peace, because their country depended on the king's country for food. On an appointed day, Herod put on his royal robes. He took his seat upon the throne and delivered an oration to them. And the people were shouting, the voice of a God and not of a man. Essentially, they're calling him God. Immediately, an angel of the Lord struck him down because he did not give God the glory, and he was eaten by worms, and he breathed his last. He got his comeuppance, didn't he? But the word of God increased and multiplied, and Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem, when they had completed their service, bringing with them John, whose other name was Mark. So two really important things happen right here. And Luke wants you to associate them with the ministry of Paul moving forward, or Saul. He's still going by Saul at this point. The first of them is that Saul, in his ministry, will encounter many times when it will be the state that moves against him, that this was already happening. But Luke wants you to know something about this. It doesn't work. The king who moves against the church, the king who slew James the elder, the older brother of John, the king who tried to arrest Peter, was thwarted in that desire to do that. And he ends up dead, horribly dead, eaten by worms, it says, struck by an angel of God. I think Luke is telling something to the reader. Those who oppose this movement come to nasty ends because God is behind it. The other thing that Luke wants you to do is to introduce to you this character of John Mark. By tradition, this is the man who will write the Gospel according to St. Mark. But initially, we're going to see him as an early companion of St. Paul. This will be a contentious relationship, but Luke wants you to see that he was part of that early Christian community. He was there with the very first believers. And in fact, when Peter was set free from prison, it was to John Mark's home. It's not his house, it's still his parents' home, but to the home of his mother, who is the mother of John, called Mark. That's where Peter went. He is deep inside the very center of it. He also, by the way, is a relative of Barnabas. And he and Barnabas are going to accompany Saul of Tarsus on that first missionary journey, which is what we're actually going to go to next. So we get a little introduction to him. Luke is a very good storyteller as well. And I want you to notice two things about the story, and that is just the humor, the wonder of that story with Rhoda. You just get this picture of this young woman. She's so excited. She forgets to open the door. That sounds like something that it just has this truthiness about it. I think that's what Stephen Colbert says. It just feels real, doesn't it? You can see that happening. And Luke kind of wants you to smile a little bit at it, because things like that happen to Christians too. But then the other irony piece is that as Herod called a god, devoured by worms. We will talk about this on Sunday. I look forward to an opportunity to talk more with you about it. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Would love to bring it up, answer it, talk more with you. God bless you.